Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hello again to those of you that have rejoined following the first meeting. Um, as I said in that at the end of the first meeting, I've set each little briefing up as its own event so that people can pick and choose what to come to. But also, it means I won't have like a 5 hour long recording to try and edit down. Um, that said, this is recorded. All right. If you're unhappy with that, please leave now because it will be used online and posted online. The premise of obviously this is just to give an update over the new changes that come in on the 5th for compliance immediately as it hits the 6th. So, 1 minute past midnight. Some housekeeping, as I said, it is being recorded. All right. I did put the chat on this so you can chat as well. Type, but please do be mindful. There's a lot of different people in here as to not cause offence. Make sure your conduct is obviously professional and so your written comms are as well. Microphone and cameras are off as to not, interrupt the meeting because the initial post I put out had like 60 odd replies, so I wasn't sure on the amount of people that were going to come. There is also a Q&A function in Teams, so if you're looking at the Teams interface, on the top, I don't know what you call it, on the top bar there, you'll see Q&A. You can click that. You can start discussion threads on specific elements, but you can also post questions, which I'll check at the end and try and answer any that may not have been answered throughout it. As a disclaimer, this is not formal training. This is just a briefing to go over the updates and changes. If you're ever unsure, or obviously if you're watching the video that's been posted and some time has passed, some of this could be out of date. So always ensure you're referencing formal training that you've had recently, or check the official standards and rule books as required before ever acting. All right. So this meeting in particular is based around OHS 019. We done 021 this morning. If you missed it, I'll post a video at some point. But this one around OHS 019 is obviously quite a fundamental one. It doesn't just impact the safe system of work planners, but it impacts the responsible manager, causes the person in charge or picks. As well as that, there are some fundamental changes to the standard that will also impact how sponsors or approved risks audited companies maintain that status because there is an increased audit requirement internally, which means your processes will have to align to that during the risks audit. The purpose of the standard, as an overview, is to ensure the safety of people on or near the line, whether that's accessing and walking, egressing, or working. All right. As well as that, it touches on obviously OTM, and OTP stuff and mitigates risks in and around them, such as in a possession when you've got RRVs. The standard itself describes how planning work is to be done. All right. So it outlines the roles, what the responsibilities of each role is, the steps and the order of these steps. It also obviously covers our safe systems of work for protecting the group when they're on or near the line, either walking or working, and helps us comply with any of the rule books as applicable. The standard applies to basically anyone that goes on or near the line, all right? Although there's obviously explicit wording here, if you were going on or near the line to walk or work, this standard will apply, right? There is an element of it which So there's another standard, which is OHS 00130. A lot of the older lot on the railway will know it as high street environment working. Um, this is something that I've covered later on in the day because it's something people need to know about and a lot of people don't. But when you're working to that standard, you are in an area what is known as segregated from the railway, meaning OHS 019 is not applicable because you are not classed as on or near the line. However, even in that situation, if there is an electrified area, so third rail or overhead line equipment, then OHS 019 still applies to those specific works as well. Okay. If you happen to be a signaller who can make your own protection methods, a designated person, any emergency services that are responding to an emergency, or any of the pilot duties, as well as a few other very specific examples, a safe work pack, and as such, 019 is not needed. Okay. They're all covered by their own relevant standards or handbook modules. So accountabilities, if you're accountable, basically if something goes wrong and you're accountable for it, you can expect the finger to get pointed at you. The responsible manager obviously appoints planners, appoints the PICs or person in charges, authorizes safe work packs and safe systems of work for use. They have a lot of accountability and a lot of responsibility throughout the whole process. The planner essentially works on behalf of the responsible manager. Responsible manager appointing them or appointing a competent person specific to that plan. So what I mean by that is, although someone may hold the competence on Sentinel, if they're from up north and they're suddenly thrown in to planning work for a southern-based job where we've got DC instead of overheads, they're not familiar with the route, they may not be the best choice for planning that job. Responsible manager should be accounting for that, all right? And making sure the planner is suitable for the job. And then we've got person in charge, all right? The way the standard is written now is that the person in charge should be the cause. All right. The standard itself explicitly states that it is assumed that the person in charge for all references to it, they are the cause. Right. Delegating cause is still allowed, but it's a bit more stringent now. As well as that, it says that it should only be done at pre-planning. So we can't just have one pick that signs off all of the worksite safe work packs, for instance, and then they're just handed out to the different causes on the night. It shouldn't be like that, and the wording is a lot more, like I said, stringent on that to help prevent things like that happening. Now, looking at the process very broadly, what we do is we produce, it then gets verified and authorized to use ahead of being accepted on the night, or if needed, we have to authorize lowering of the safe system of work. Producing in under normal circumstances is produced by the planner, verified by the PIC, and then authorized by the RM. Sometimes the responsible manager might need to plan their own works, in which case they will produce it, get the PIC to verify, and then also authorize. If there's ever an incident and an IRP needs to be done, so an incident response pack needs to be made, it's going to fall to the person in charge to do all three of the elements: plan, verify, authorize. What they've added in now is an explicit note saying that it is, although it is okay to do, it is poor practice and should only be done if there is no other planner available in this circumstance. So an RM shouldn't just be doing their own packs, all right? If there is another planner available, it should be going to another planner so that the normal planning process is followed and there is individual people at each step, right? Obviously not applicable if it's an IRP. And it's very important as well to make sure that the responsible manager, or so if I change the wording, so anybody that verifies a safe work pack must never authorize it. All right. As such, whoever is the pick and the RM, bar incidents, should always be different. Okay. That's not new, but it is something that's very important and something that I get asked a question on a lot. All right. So you can produce and authorize if needed, but you can never ever verify and authorize bar in an incident. The person in charge now must hold COS. So it does explicitly say that you must hold COS to be a pick, or if you're a pick working alone, then IWA is fine as well. If you're a pick working with a group, you can't hold IWA, must be COS. If you are the pick, obviously, again, not new, but just important to reiterate, you must not be the lookout and you must not be the site warden. Okay. So the planning process as a whole, step one, identify the work and initiate that planning process. All right. So there's a responsible manager goes, oh, we need to go and do work over there. Let's find a competent planner with suitable local knowledge and work knowledge. We'll define the scope of the work, what we want to do, what we want to deliver, any relevant resources and timeframes. Write it all down, right? Get it all together. Then the planner and the RM will obviously do the site assessment, looking at maybe Google Maps, route view, any photos to check the site and identify any specific hazards. Okay. Because 019 does say that it's site specific and task specific hazards that we need to identify and account for. Which then obviously comes into the hazard identification, identify all of the key hazards to do with work. Part of that is obviously what's known as the operational hazards, which are train movements, any electrical hazards as well, right? So DC isolations, stuff like that. The risk assessments are done. For us on the supply chain, typically that's done in task briefings or work package plans. There is obviously the generic task risk control sheets that NetRail use as well. But yeah, the site-specific risk assessments, task-specific risk assessments, all that needs to have been done with control measures then selected as appropriate. For everybody that does risk assessment, the hierarchy of controls for all risk assessment starts off with eliminating. If we can get rid of the problem, it's not a problem. And then it obviously drops down sub, engineering, admin, and then PPE. The idea of this, for instance, so how does this translate, Reese? Well, you're just waffling. No, the way this would translate is, oh, okay, we've got the risk of being hit by trains. Can we eliminate that with a line block? Can we eliminate that with a possession that's planned in? Right? That's how it relates. So we then get our control measures, document it, and develop our work methods, and then document work package plans, task briefing sheets, and the safe work pack. 019 does say that although it references the safe work pack, it can be via other documents. All right. So if you've got a pick, you can send them the work package plan and then the safe work pack on the same email, two separate emails, whatever. But as long as it's all available to the pick, that is fine and that is okay. Stakeholder consultation, although worded fancy, essentially all it means is we're now going to review everything. And that's where the verification process comes in. You get the person in charge to go through it, make sure that all the task risks are identified, site risks. If they are delegating the COS duties, which we'll touch on later. So if they are doing it, Is there good reason that they're doing that? And if so, have all of the operational safety risks been considered and correct? Obviously, if they are, you verify it here, give it a verification. Once verified, it goes to the responsible manager to go back through, make sure that it's true, accurate, correct, who will then authorize it for use. Once it's been authorized for use, it then gets distributed out as applicable. I'm certain we come across it later on, but the distribution must be done a shift in advance. Yeah, that hasn't changed. It's still a shift in advance, which means a lot of people in the supply chain default to, oh, that means 12 hours before. Please, try and remember the word in shift in advance, because that is the correct terminology, because it combats things like annual leave and rest days. Okay. That's why it's tailored to a shift in advance, not just a definitive, 12 hours. So when you're going through verifying the safe work pack or creating the safe work pack, if you're a planner, there is some mandatory contents. All right. You've got the safe work, what most people know it as is the safe work pack validation form. The correct title is OHS/019/F01. This is a mandatory form, okay? And because it is a standardized form, really, we shouldn't be using any sort of, makeup of it. It should be that form in the pack, on the front of the pack, all right? I know some companies will have their own templates where they've edited or added to it. It's like everything, I suppose, technically, if you're adding to it, as long as you have the minimum requirement there, then you're just being safer, which is better. But just to help avoid any issues on site, if you can use the explicit standard form, then ideal. A part completed 9909. Again, this is a standard form. You can get it on the standards portal. Obviously, NRL2 OHS 019/RT9909. Used to be available on RSSB, but it's now been incorporated as part of the standard, so you can only get it through the standards portal. Always make sure you've got the most up-to-date version. Okay, so any of the ones on RSSB will be out of date. You've then got to have information on the work, and like I said earlier, it can be as a supplement. So you could get a work package plan, task briefing sheet, survey specifications, anything like that is fine, but there has to be something. Okay, so again, I appreciate on the supply chain there is limitations and challenges that we face when it comes to planning massive delivery of jobs. You might have 50 teams out that you've got to plan safe work packs for. I appreciate that one of the common practices that we see on site, not saying it's correct, but one of the common practices we see is obviously safe work pack gets sent to everyone, and then the person that's out, I don't know, strapping, doing their possession support, whatever, will just have that safe work pack that's been sent to everyone. It's not correct because they don't have the specific task briefings sheets in them, or copy of the work package plans or any other relevant things. So if you can incorporate it, I do believe some of the Rail Hub or the other digital safe system of work planning sites allow you to add attachments. So if you can add the attachment there and send it to everyone, fantastic. It makes sure it's correct and we're meeting the minimum requirements. A safe system of work for walking and working. Although it's always been the case that we must plan for walking and working, they have added some explicit extra guidance on walking in this version of 019. And you do have to plan for each element of walking. So that's walking to site and then walking back or egress in site, or sorry, walking to the next location of work. We'll touch on that in a bit because it's important to understand the requirements around that. Hazard directory extract for the working mileage. Yeah, don't put in 10 miles of track just because that's what the possession is or that's what the worksite is. These are site specific and task specific. So the working mileage is relevant to that person's safe work pack should then have the hazard directory and sectional appendix in it, which also leads on to the site specific risks. You might be working above water, that should be included. You might be working in and around oil HV cables. Again, that's a site specific risk because it's at your site of work. Oil can have PCBs in, should be documented and shown that it's been considered. Although the 9909 has always made it clear that permit requirements should be in it, they have touched on this a little bit, making it a bit more clear. All permits must be identified in the safe work pack. Again, you know, I will refer back to this information on the work. If permit to digs are needed and it's in your task briefing sheet that's attached to the safe work pack, that is also fine. Okay, but just be mindful that on the 9909 there's also permit requirement space that needs to be filled in. Welfare arrangements are mandatory, yeah, whether it's transient, so using local amenities, or you've got a SAC, must be in there. Same with emergency arrangements, all right, and that is specifically the first aid arrangements and the nearest 24-hour A&E hospital to the site. Okay. And then as applicable is everything else. If you're working in a one booked line blockage, you must include the one. If you're working in a possession, you must include the one, and obviously the possession pack is applicable. If you're in an LCV area and you have to follow the LCV process, you must include the LCV forms. If there's a line blockage, include the line blockage form and signal diagrams so that the PIC can double check their own limits and understand where they're protected from and to, as well as anything else that's relevant, you know. There's also explicit guidance now on the control requirements or document control requirements, that is. Pardon me, sorry. So everything must be clearly approved, version controlled, and quality controlled. They must be legible and accessible to all the relevant people. You are technically allowed to hand write out when creating a safe work pack. You could hand write all of it out and then give it to your PIC if you want. If you do, make sure it's legible. But also, obviously, if you are a PIC completing it, again, ensure it's legible. There is formal change processes that they've identified now as well. So if you do need to go down the hierarchy, you have to record it as you used to. If you need to make a minor change to the safe work pack, again, you need to record it and it's explicitly clear on stuff like that. And although it's not explicitly new, don't forget all safe work packs must be retained. Okay, even if it's unused, you send it back, did not use because shift was cancelled, or send it back, did not use because when on site, access is overgrown. Anything like that, okay? They must all be returned every time. The introduction of RailHub and other online systems is obviously great for this because you just hit complete and it sends it back. Now, this is quite a key point. Changes to the safe work pack, specifically when you're out on site, okay? Because before you start work, on page 2 of the F01 or the acceptance form, the person in charge on the night needs to then re-accept the pack to accept that it is usable for that shift. So when you get to site, you might not have been there for 6 months and it suddenly has got, I don't know, a whole extra line has randomly appeared that you didn't account for. All right. That might then impact your plan and mean it's unable to be safely implemented. Anything like that that could happen, right? So site conditions differ, new hazards, Protection arrangements need to be modified. So you might have went there with the intention to use a permanent lookout system or permanent warning system, such as a train operated interlocked warning method. But then when you get there, you find it's broken. You need to then readjust, okay? Or the work changes itself, the amount of people, you might have a site warden book, didn't show up, anything like that, all right? First thing you have to do, stop, okay? If anything changes, you stop because that pack that you have planned for is no longer valid, okay? You then look at the types of changes and you consider, how does it impact my work? Do I need to contact the responsible manager, my on-call team? How can we make it safe? Don't forget, if it's ever unable to be done, you just stop. Yeah, it's not worth taking a shortcut, because if you get hurt, um, no one will blame you. No, sorry, everyone will blame you regardless of how good your intentions were. Companies will much prefer that you don't go out, don't have an accident, don't get hurt, rather than potentially saving one shift from going down. Okay. But anyway, looking at the types of changes, we can get things that are obviously minor changes. And I think I just need to caveat this section as a whole with, this is my interpretation, okay, of minor, significant, and major changes, and the process to take. There's no detailed info on types of changes other than when going down the hierarchy, or it not being usable. But the way that I see it, and I imagine most people would agree, a level of common sense and safety conscious decision making is expected of the person in charges. Okay. So minor adjustments. So work sequence within approved methodologies. So let's say that you get to site and you don't have a pan puller to take a clip out, just a really rough example, but you've got a hammer. The hammer, although it's not the preferred method of removal of keys, it is still available. It's just lower down on the hierarchy of approved methods. So that is a minor change to the work that, as long as you stop and think about, you could then implement. All right. You would make a note of the change on, I imagine in this case, it'd be the task briefing sheet, and you'd communicate with the relevant responsible line manager. And that goes to things like this: change of personnel. So, I don't know, let's say we had John planned to come in. John was sick, so he sent his brother Steve in. I don't know. Steve has his exact same competencies. It doesn't actually change anything. It's just a name change, which is fine. Anything like that, okay? And then obviously the key one, moving up our safe system of work hierarchy. Anything like that, the person in charge can implement with notation or note taking, marking it in the safe work pack. The best place to do so normally is on the 9909, or some packs have a note section or a feedback section. Those are the best places to do it, okay? Communicate to the RM or your supervisor as needed. It's always worth having that formal communication log somewhere, but I wouldn't allow anything minor like this to stop or impact delivery, unless, of course, you felt you couldn't implement any of it safely. We then move on to things that are, again, as I've defined them, either significant or major changes. Any sort of changing to the protection arrangements or the safe system of work, specifically moving down it, you must get it reauthorized. Okay, there's no other process in place. You must stop, ring the on-call team or the responsible manager, get a formal documented authority number, record it, and record any information as to why you've had to implement. Okay, so things like moving the access and egress. Although obviously we have approved access points, now that the walking is a component that is explicitly planned in the safe work pack, and every element of walking is planned. If you change the access point, you've now changed that planned walking arrangements. So you've then got to consider getting it reauthorized because it's been changed. And then obviously these here are just some other examples of what I would class as significant. And then major changes, things like you've decided to start doing a re-rail rather than some deveg, anything that just changes the fundamental job, site, or safe work pack at all. You should really be doing the process from new. Yeah, any huge changes that directly change, obviously, the planned task, site, or anything like that, you can't just edit what you've done because it's a whole new situation, whole new plan, whole new system, right? So, change control process summarized. We identify there's a need. We stop work, especially if necessary, especially if safety is compromised. We assess the type of change. Contact your. It's worth saying, although I say responsible manager, it's and or the relevant on-call team or process as your company has. You reassess, update, so either amend or create a new safe work pack as required. Then get it authorized. Might be over the phone via an authority number. You must then rebrief everyone in your group, and only then can you carry on either resuming work or starting work, depending on when this change was identified. All changes must be documented. Date and time of the change, nature of the change. If there's any risk, like explicit risk assessment you've done, that needs to be recorded too. Who authorized it, when they authorized it, and obviously the authorization number. And then if you've got or able to brief any records showing the communications to the workforce. So what this means is, let's say that you've briefed everyone, they've all signed your 9909, go out to work. Oh, suddenly there's fog from a factory. We have to stop and reassess. You need to then record that you rebriefed them following the changes. Okay. Depending on what system you're using, will change how you do this. Looking at the key changes anyway between issue 12 of 019 and the new issue 13, they obviously, like I said earlier, change or have enhanced the role separation requirements in terms of making it a bit clearer on what best practice is, only allowing the RM to plan their own stuff if there's no other planners available. Right. The flow chart as a whole has been updated. There's a lot clearer tables and supporting images in the standard, which is really nice for planners. All right, so you've now got more structured guidance. Content requirements, we've now got Appendix A and Table 3 that clearly define bare minimum requirements. Table 3, which is really helpful, also then expands on it. So it says you must have part completed 9909. You must have task briefing sheet, and then it will go on to say something like, this can be work package plan, method statements, all things like that. So it just expands on it all, which is great because it reduces ambiguity around the contents, meaning that obviously we should have more standardized packs across the whole industry. So even for contract causes or picks, that move around, a lot of the safe work packs should start being very similar, even if it's not on RailHub. Section 5 of the standard has much clearer definitive guidance on how we do changes and specific processes for managing changes to safe work packs. It does also touch on the person in charge changing. Okay. Like I said at the beginning, we can't just change the pick on the night. Again, not that it's correct, but there is something that I've seen, and I'm sure a lot of others have seen on the industry, where a company will use one pick just to be able to, smash through 20 packs, get them all verified, And then what they would do is they would give the pack to the COS who they planned in on the night, and that person would then sign as the pick on the night, just to help speed up the planning process. That is no longer allowed, okay? With clearer guidance on why and how it should be done. There's a lot more clarity on competence requirements and ongoing management for the key roles, as well as obviously touching on the non-technical bits, like understanding the site that you're planning for, not just the core principles of planner. The modules, so OHS 019 has got modules to it, which I think is in the next slide, but they've just renamed some of them and updated some of the clarity on that. The incident response guidance, again, they've added more explicit instructions on this, which is quite nice. Even now, I'm still seeing a lot of COSs when I go and do COS assessments that don't understand the planning for incidents or responding to incidents. The limitations of what they can and can't do, how to do the IRPs, things like that. So with some increased guidance on that, it should help with knowledge throughout the industry. Any of the documents that are standardized are available on the Network Rail portal, standards portal. Right. We have a change summary document that just very briefly mentions what's been changed between 12 and 13, but so does the standards portal. Okay. If you're part of Network Rail, obviously they've got internal learning systems, digital systems, and other processes they can follow to get updates on it. All right. If you want any detailed retraining or guidance on this, feel free to reach out to me or the company. We can potentially discuss and look at things like that. One thing that I kind of skipped over, but just so you're aware, existing safe work packs, you don't have to go back and change them all, unless there's a very clear, definitive breach, which might be the case now that obviously the safe system work hierarchy's changed. Quite a few of them might be wrong, but you need to go back and make sure that they're okay. If they are okay, you don't need to change them, right? So you don't just have to blanket, have it in your head, oh, we've got to change all of them, only if it doesn't conform to issue 13 of 019. The modules, I'm not going to spend too long on. Pardon me, sorry, I'm just having a drink. This is more for planners. Obviously, we've got our core standard, which is the main principles of planning the jobs. But then we have got 5 modules that support that and add additional information depending on the situation we're planning for. Module 5 was withdrawn a while ago, but we've now got obviously Module 6. And again, although technically it was implemented a while ago in June 23, I'm still noticing a lot of people are unaware of the mandatory requirements that Module 6 puts on isolation and possession support planning duties for these roles and jobs, okay? The other ones, again, they've been around for ages, and there's no major recent updates to them. This one here, it says December 25. They just changed the name. That's about it, really, on that one. No other major overhauls or changes. How to use them, the modules, that is. Obviously, identify the applicable ones, read through them. Anything additional that it's telling you to account for, do so and incorporate it into the safe work pack. Make sure you obviously any reference documents are clearly stated in your templates and your systems, things like that. Now, again, regrettably, there's only so many hours in the day. There is a few extra things I wanted to add in here. I just did not get time, and I do apologize. I'm hoping this is still sharing. Just be mindful that when planning line blockages, we've got the new form, the NR3180 was updated back in June 25. There is some key changes on here for us as planners. I think the biggest one for me is that section 3, when we're discussing additional protections, is now open text rather than selecting one because of the amount of additional protection methods now available to us. Right. As well as that, one of the core principles of 019 is that the safe system of work hierarchy has changed. Just trying to pull up a picture of that one for you. Essentially, it's went from currently we have 7 types of safe system of work. It's changed to 6. All right. So when you're planning jobs, you need to keep in mind that there is no human activated equipment allowed anymore. So that means PWE or any other form of system that a human has to physically activate to warn the team of, or the group of, cannot be planned for. So that's been removed. So number 6, which is the lowest hierarchy, is now the unassisted lookouts. Again, if you're planning jobs for that, your pick must have COS lookout. And you must have director approval to use this as well. There is a specific walking hierarchy as well that identifies the requirement, which I'm just pulling up now. I'm just trying to figure out how to use Teams. Apologies. Which means you must identify how we walk to and from site. This was obviously updated, the last revision of the rulebook of Handbook 7, and they've only just caught up with 019. If I share my screen, good. So those of us that are planning for jobs and causes, this is the new hierarchy, safe system work hierarchy. All right. So the top 3, they're the same. Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to change if we're going to be honest. Safeguard defense separated. There are protection methods because we are protected from trains. The warning systems is what have changed. They removed human activated equipment. And now we've only got our permanent, portable, and then unassisted lookouts. Be mindful that if planning for permanent or portable systems, the person whom you appoint as the pick must be competent in activating these systems. And they must be systems activated by trains. Yeah. Again, no human equipment is allowed. So although it says portable, it still has to be train activated. The unassisted lookouts, very last resort. You're not allowed to plan for intermediate or distant lookouts now. So it's site lookout only, and the line speed has to be 25 miles per hour or less. As well as that, you can't plan to use lookouts in a work site at all. So again, if you're planning for jobs in work sites and you wanted to, I don't know, use lookouts, because train OTP is going to be moving at 25 miles an hour because of send and receive, something like that. That can't be done now. You can't plan for that. The safe system of work hierarchy for walk-in is essentially like this. If you can't be 3 meters away, so not on or near the line, which means you are within 3 meters, you must stay at least 2 meters away for a line speed of 100. You've got to have the walk-in access and egress component risk assessed. All right. You must have it documented in here somewhere, risk assessment for it. You can go up to 1.25 meters from the nearest running line as long as the speed is 100 or below. So this is conflict in itself straight away. This should be 101 really, or above. 100 or below, we should be walking 1.25 meters away. Again, walking must be risk assessed. There is some other explicit guidance in here, right at the back, in Appendix E. I'll just pull it up. That will, let's see. So D touches on how a company can create company instructions for walking. Sorry, yeah, D, not E. Create it and use it. So if you've got a risk assessment in there and you're planning to walk 1.25 meters away as a minimum from the nearest open line, you've got to have risk assessed how, what, why, all right? As well as having an explicit company instruction written somewhere about it, specifically when walking over an area of limited clearance or if the team comes to an unplanned or unexpected obstacle and how they get around it, what process they can take, things like that. But yeah, lots of changes, all right, that impact not only the planning elements, but the implementation elements of being a COS use or pick using Safe Work Pack. Let me stop sharing quickly, check the Q&A, see if there is anything, or the chat as well. Nothing in the chat, nothing in the Q&A. Good, fantastic. So, like I said, this is an overview only. I could go on for ages regarding the changes to 019. There's significantly more of them. If anyone wants any particular information to follow up on anything, just reach out. We'll see what we can do. All right. If I can help at all, I will. But bear in mind, obviously, I am also exceptionally busy. So I will get back to people as and when I can. But otherwise, what I'll do is in the chat, I'll pop the link to the next planned meeting, which starts in 7 minutes. Just getting that up now. Good. There's the link. If you're a COS or someone that plans works, I would highly recommend jumping in on that next one. 00130 is about working essentially on platforms, but it does also extend to line side or potentially the area what would normally be known as on or near the line if there's a possession set up. All right. I'm going to go get a drink and then I'm going to go join the other meeting. Anyone that's still in here, I will kick out just before starting the next one, just so the recording doesn't just keep going. But yeah, I appreciate everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reece.
It's all right, Paul. You're welcome.
Thank you, Reece. Thank you.
Yeah.